the face of my conscience.
Everywhere.
Coming to understand of myself.
2024.
Clear out all the old cobwebs.
If it's 7 o'clock on Saturday morning, it's time for This Week in Waukesha on WAUK 101.1 FM and the Civic Media app. I am your host, Don Browne, with Johnny on the board. We're coming to you live and local from the office of former Alderman Don Paul Browne, located here in the WAUK studios in downtown Waukesha. We're right around the corner from Theodore Yalman's Park, where we are proud to honor our suffragette heritage here in the Shaw. And I've got a very special guest this morning, County Supervisor Terry Thieme, also my predecessor in the City Council. And he'll be talking about his upcoming re-election campaign for a second term as the 10th District Supervisor, as well as his long history of service to our city and really to our nation. And then and Terry's going to be with us all throughout the show. But in the second hour, His Eminence Mayor Sean Riley comes in his capacity as a member of the Rotary Club to talk about their upcoming blues concert next Sunday that will raise money for the big Rotary Club's Blues Festival they have later on in the summer in August. So looking forward to seeing Sean. And Sean's going to have support from Bob Mitnack, who will be calling in to explain the concert and the festival. And talk a little bit about some milestones this week. February 15th was National Wisconsin Day. And so I wanted to see what we did, what we could do to acknowledge that. And it was also, and Terry would appreciate this as a retired police officer, it's National School Resource Officers Day. That was Thursday, February 15th this week. And so we'll talk about that. When I was broadcasting the West KM game last night, I saw a couple of the SROs. I was walking out, and I got to wish them a happy National SRO Day, and they were very appreciative. So there's actually a National Association of School Resource Officers based in Alabama. So more on that later. And then Lieutenant Dan Notling of the Waukesha Fire Department will be coming in again to promote next Saturday's Melodies for Mary benefit concert. Very important fundraiser for a good friend in the fire department, Mark Schrader, and his family. Their daughter, Mary, as many of our regular listeners would know, was diagnosed with leukemia right before Thanksgiving. And so we really want to get up for that. So it's going to be a great show. We're really looking forward to having you on. We're taking your calls here at 844-967-2789. You can also text 844-967-2789. So, again, our guest of honor, really quite a resume. And I had the number wrong. I think I had 40 years or 30. It comes out to over 30 when you consider it was 25 years in the police force. I got that right?
A total of 25. I was 19 here with the city of Waukesha. And then, of course, my 11 years as an alderman in the 1st District.
Of course, yes, my alderman. And then you step down from city council. I think you're going to take some time off and retire and enjoy your family, your children and grandchildren. And then you caught the bug and you ran again in 2022, I believe it was, right, for the county spot?
Yes. I'm up for my second term now coming up. And it was truly a surprise. I had obviously thought about it. Dave Swan, who did an awesome job for our district. He was a longtime county supervisor for many, many years. And it was really never on my radar and, thought about it from time to time. But that's really about all that it was.
Sure.
When Dave was retiring, a good friend of ours, Steve Wimmer, had talked to me, given me a call and to gauge my interest. And
sure.
I was very honored. I mean, when somebody thinks of you for a position like that, where you can kind of help your government, help your citizens, your constituency, I think that's really kind of the ultimate honor that you can have. But
sure.
And initially, I says no, I had enough, and then we talked again more later in the week, and okay, I'll see how it goes, and the voters had placed their trust in me, and here I am running for a second term.
Love it. That's terrific. And so, one of the nicknames I've coined for you, Terry, or the nickname is the Fighting Saint. There'll be more on that later, but I think it's very fitting when you consider your service. You were in the Marines.
Yes.
And then you became a police officer. And then after your service with the police department, you got into the legislative sector. And
that's a job I thought I'd never have, and
right.
When before you get into politics and you're looking just like any job, I guess, when you're looking from the outside in, you don't see everything. You don't have the full picture of what goes on. And I thought, oh man, that you're looking at the negatives and aldermen get all the complaints, it's a thankless job and so on and so forth. When I really got in the mechanics of it to see what it was all about and the benefits and the good that you can do in government, it was very, very rewarding. But just like anything, there comes a time where, you think you've given it all. I've said that with every job that I've had. If I can't do it to the best of my ability and, have everything into it, I'm not just going to sit there and draw a paycheck.
Sure.
And, I kind of felt that I had some family opportunities and stuff. So I thought now would be a good time. And I guess I want to clear the record too, Don.
Yeah.
I don't think you and I really started out as friends when it came
Sure.
out. When you were running against me, I had not known you.
Right.
I had backed somebody else to replace me when
Sure.
it came up to
Right.
it. And I can't, I'm not afraid to admit when I was wrong. And I certainly was wrong. Don, you've become a good friend. The things that you did when you were an alderman in our district were things that I'd never dreamed of. You really did our district well, and you should be proud.
That means a lot.
It's too bad that, the redistricting happened
Yeah.
and you got out. And Mike's doing a great job, too,
Yeah.
not to take anything away from him. Not at all.
Yep.
But, I wanted to make that point this morning. We didn't start out on the best of terms.
Sure.
And now we're great
Yeah.
friends. I'm
Yeah.
not afraid to admit when
Sure.
I was wrong.
Well, and that level of respect for you was always there, even from the beginning. And one, for everyone's benefit, you had it ultimately backed out of running for re-election at that point, but your name was still on the ballot.
Yes.
And I still lost to the ghost of Terry Thiene by 12 votes. And I'd won the in-person election. People that showed up, I think it was like a 5-vote differential. But I think a lot of absentee voters is what delivered the election for you. And that's a credit to your many years of service and to the reputation that you'd held in our district, in our neighborhood. And so it means a lot that we have become good friends and neighbors. And it also means a lot, too, that you're representing us in the county and looking out for our best interest.
So about that, I thought I had things pretty much in line. Having served on the city for 11 years, I didn't think there was much of a transition or adjustment period. I'd be able to step right in. Although the mechanics might be the same with some of the branches of government that they have.
Sure.
Obviously the numbers are much bigger because you're covering a much larger area.
Yeah.
And there are different things. So even in the 2 years now almost 2 years now that I've been a county supervisor, I'm still learning.
Sure.
And there have been some frustrations with everything.
Right.
Everybody's, I think, if they haven't, they should know.
Right.
The state has a surplus. Now, I don't know exactly what that number is. I've heard as low as $1 billion. I've heard as high as $5 billion, and that's billion with a B as in boy.
Right.
This past year we had to adopt a resolution to the county funding some prosecutors and staff in the district attorney's office. And that's a state-funded position that should not be taking county tax dollars.
Sure.
The taxpayers of Waukesha County should not be paying for that. And the state is sitting on the surplus. However, and Waukesha County isn't the only one.
Right.
The state's sitting on the surplus, and they could be funding positions in the different county branches of government. And that's very frustrating to us.
I bet. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of that. I am embarrassed that I don't know this. How many county supervisors do we have in the legislative body?
25.
25. So, after 11 years of dealing with, I think, mostly, 14 colleagues to try to win votes over, it's an extra 10. And again, there's a bigger kitty, a bigger budget, and a lot more issues to deal with at the county level. Would you say that your work on the city had been good preparation for that?
I think most definitely. It prepares you. You just like anything, you can get involved as much or as little as you want to. There's just, I don't know quite how to characterize it, so I'll just say that there's just so much in government to learn, and you want to make sure that you're making informed decisions. You don't
Sure.
want to inundate yourself with too much information,
Right.
but you want to make sure that you have all the facts with everything.
Sure. And how would you view your relationship with your fellow county supervisors, especially the other ones representing other parts of Waukesha?
I think as a whole, I get along with everybody very well. It's a bunch of different backgrounds coming together to serve the citizens. There's on the juvenile judicial and law enforcement board that I'm on. There's a defense attorney that's on there.
Okay.
And a police and a defense attorney. But it's
Sure.
you get the different point of views. But that's what rounds out the government. So you're making sure that you're capturing every point of view with everything.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's always important to have smart people that disagree with you, or maybe on the other side of the aisle, and because it's how you learn and it's how you share information and ideas.
Absolutely.
So-
If it'd be pretty boring if everybody had the same philosophy and agreed all the time.
Right. Yeah. No idea. And again, you wouldn't always have the best results or the best policy. And that was the thing I loved about being on the council, was that it was because it was nonpartisan, and you would find you have so much more in common with people that you may disagree with on the national issues. When you realize that we're all united by the things that are important to us, having clean streets, good roads, good police, safety, good schools, all those things that, good local economic development. So all those things that mean everything to us, close to home.
And it's amazing when you go around and talk to people. They, some of their first questions are still, how did you vote in the last, election?
Yeah.
What would you consider yourself, more
Sure.
Democratic
Sure.
or Republican kind of thing?
Yeah. The conversation continues with the Fighting Saint, 10th District County Supervisor Terry Theme, and we're going to talk about his committee assignments, including Human Resources Committee. And don't forget, my guest next week is Tyree Pope III, comic genius.
I'm Earl Ingram.
The Shaw, WAUK, Waukesha's home for Nightlight with Pete Schwaba.
Basketball and baseball together. Okay, this week in Waukesha, we're back, and I am with the Fighting Saint, County Supervisor District 10, Terry Theme, and we are talking about your some of the work you're doing on judiciary and law enforcement. You're also on Human Resources Committee. What's that like?
I was the chair of Human Resources as an alderman, so it was kind of I guess you could say a lateral step.
Sure.
Those were two committees I wanted to be on, and Paul Decker was gracious enough to put me on those at the county level. And now with the new period coming in, I'm unopposed, so hopefully I'm reelected. But then comes a new county board chair, because as you know, Paul's not rerunning. So we'll have an election for a new county board chair, and we'll
Paul
see.
Farrell's not running again.
No,
huh?
Paul Decker.
Oh, Paul Decker. Okay,
Paul Decker.
Sure. Okay,
Paul
That's right,
Decker.
yeah, because he's the county executive. Okay.
Yes,
So-
Paul Decker is the county board chairman.
Paul's going to step down, huh?
Yeah, he
Wow.
is. He is. So now we'll see once what happens with the new county board chairman.
Sure.
And what committees he assigns everybody to. But yeah, I'm on the Human Resources also. A familiar person chairs that committee that you might recognize, the name of Larry Nelson.
Larry, all right.
So, I had some history with Larry, obviously, a former
Sure.
mayor of Waukesha. And, that was, I guess I'm finding just a little bit easier of a transition.
Sure.
All new names, all new faces,
Right.
much larger things to deal with as far as the volume, but, basically the same with everything. I enjoy my time with both committees, quite honestly.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's, for starting out, I think those are some good assignments to get. So,
Very much so. I couldn't agree more.
terrific.
One of the probably the first contentious vote that we had is there was an issue with the sheriff's department as far as the pay,
Okay.
and the turnover was was drastic. And one of the pieces of feedback that the sheriff's department was getting when employees had left, deputies, is that, they wanted more money,
Right.
better benefits, more money kind
Sure.
of thing.
Sure.
And I found that pretty odd, only because when I was with the city of Waukesha, the sheriff's department and us, not that we were the highest paid in the county, but,
Right.
we were in the upper echelon, but we
Yeah.
always ran pretty much neck and neck.
Sure.
And apparently that gap grew, and the sheriff's department kind of lost some footing there with the city. So I was a little surprised by that. It was in the works, I think, just prior to me joining the county board, but they had laid some groundwork to give the deputies, the sheriff's department, sworn employees, a $3 an hour raise just across the board to help with retention.
Sure. Sure.
And, there were some that thought that, that should be done during bargaining, and that's what the issue is. It shouldn't be up mid-year without negotiations and so on and so forth. I'm happy to say that vote passed.
Okay.
And one of the things I think that's important to remember here is everybody, I think public safety is on the mind of all our constituents and every citizen.
Sure.
I don't think anybody has to look much further than a few years back with what happened in the city of Waukesha. So,
Absolutely.
you take pride in that. And in law enforcement, I also feel is one of those areas that you don't necessarily want to settle for second best.
Right.
There's a lot of great people. It's not as competitive as it used to be,
Sure.
but there's a lot of great people out there that can serve in that capacity. But you're looking for the best of the best to represent your department, and that's
true.
exactly how I framed that when I spoke in front of the county board when this came to a vote. And I'm glad to say that it passed. I certainly respect the opinions of my colleagues with the debate that took place. But I think that's very important. And, the main thing is that you don't lose traction, because, again, public safety is on the mind and the forefront of everybody.
Absolutely. So, yeah, this gives me a good reminder, too, is that the City of Waukesha's fire department is hiring. So some great opportunities. I know you prefer the men and women in blue, Terry, but I think just, an opportunity to serve our city. It's a great city to work for as an employer, I believe strongly.
And I couldn't agree more. A little bit of a roundabout journey for me. I as you stated before, I was in the Marine Corps, and I was all set to get out of the service and walk into the Los Angeles Police Academy. And, when push came to shove, uncorrected vision kind of disqualified me. So that was a little bit of a setback. Now, many years later, LASIK surgery, and I can see fine. And,
nice.
But, so I went back to my hometown of the city of Jefferson and, worked part-time there for a while. And I got to tell you, the difference in times, my training at that point was to ride around with one of the veteran officers and, okay, you're qualified, you can go out on your own.
Sure.
Later on I did get certified, but, nowadays, that would never happen. There's just too much training and too much to know. But, and times have changed for the better, I'll add.
Sure, yeah.
So I got my first full-time police job down in the town of Beloit. I went back to the city of Jefferson for 5 years and ended up 19 years with the city of Waukesha.
That's true.
So it gives you a well-rounded view of what the different police departments are like. And I'll never forget, it was a sergeant at that time that recruited me by the name of Rich Piggentini.
Okay.
And he says, why do you want to come to Waukesha? I says, well, I like the opportunities in a bigger city. And his answer to me was, well, bigger city, that's Milwaukee. And I says, not when you're coming from the size of the city of Jefferson. I think at that time it might have had about 7,000 or 10,000 people versus Waukesha's 50,000. So, much drastic, much larger difference with the two.
Yeah.
So, and I guess as they say, the rest is history. And
Sure.
You had mentioned in our talk prior to this, as school resource officers.
February 15th, National SRO Day.
And that's how I ended my career. And, I got to tell you, one of the best jobs I ever had.
I bet. What school were you at?
I was at Waukesha North.
Okay.
And, it was just the relationships you build. I still have youth that, well, they're not youth anymore, young adults.
Sure.
I come across now and, hey, Terry, thank you for, well, at that time it was Officer Terry.
Yeah.
But thank you for how you treated me. You know, you might have had to arrest me, but you always, were very respectful with how you performed your work. And, that really means a lot.
Absolutely.
So one of the most rewarding jobs, and now as I understand, they have that program expanded into the middle schools too. It's all about developing relationships and partnerships.
Yeah.
I remember when Waukesha was just trying to adopt a program, and there was a lot of contention. I mean, you're talking about adding positions. You're talking about responsibilities. You're talking about the difference between two different governmental bodies, the school board and, the city council.
Yeah.
But if you really think about it, and I don't know anymore, each high school has 3,000 kids, 5,000, whatever that number might be.
Sure.
But those are small cities.
Yeah.
So you look at it in that respect, you're actually
With
responsible.
younger adults that aren't as mature. The brains haven't really developed that frontal lobe and all the things.
So it's really a unique opportunity, and make it or break it. You can either be part of the issue or try to solve the issue.
Part of the solution.
The solution. There you go.
Sure.
So it was a wonderful experience. Just a wonderful experience. Wouldn't have traded it for the world.
And I want to continue this conversation with Terry Theme about the SROs as we look back on National SRO Day. That was February 15th. And also National Wisconsin Day was the same day. So conversation continues with County District Supervisor, the Fighting Saint, Terry Theme, on This Week in Waukesha, WAUK, 540 AM, and the Civic Media app.
And my heart is calling for you.
That weather.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome back to This Week in Waukesha. And again, I'm joined with 10th District Supervisor Terry Theme. And Terry is a longtime member of the Waukesha Police Department, and his police career spanned a quarter century. We were talking about February 15th this week was National SRO Day, SRO being the Student Resource Officers. School Resource Officers, which have become talk about resource, and a real asset to our schools and our communities. And Terry had mentioned, a lot has happened in the city in the past few years, and you're probably pointing specifically to the Christmas parade attack. But people forget that on December 2nd, 2019, there was a potential school shooting, not only at South but at North, that were both thwarted by our student resource officers. School resource officers. Thanks, Terry. I just want to see if you're paying attention now. School resource officers, SROs. And the city administrator at the time, Kevin Lehner, had twin sons at Waukesha South that day. My oldest daughter was either in the next classroom or two classrooms down from where the incident had occurred, where Officer Josh, the school resource officer at the time, had prevented the situation from escalating, thankfully. And I remember at the very next mayor's breakfast, which was, I think, like the following week, Kevin was basically fighting back tears in terms of his gratitude for the SROs. And, I felt exactly the same way. And I was talking to Kevin shortly after that, and he said, a year before he and I guess the city leadership had fought tooth and nail with the school board, who at the time wanted to get rid of the SRO program. For what reason, I don't know. But I find it, not only from a safety concern, but an engagement advantage that the students get to connect with our men and women in blue and find out that they really are people and that they care for the community, and they're not just there to bust you or arrest you or break up a fight or whatever that is. And you fast forward maybe a year to that tumultuous that summer of 2020, where there was the George Floyd incident, and it spurred a lot of protests around the country. And in Waukesha, there was a march, a Black Lives Matter march, and it was a non-event, largely because of our school resource officers. Like, I know Joe Klein was one, and he was telling me, because I was concerned because we were worried about what could happen in our district. You hear all this stuff on social media, and you tend to overreact. But I saw Joe that morning, and he had said, I know a lot of these students that are involved because I know they're my students. And we're communicating on social media, and they continue to communicate before, during, and after the event. And the people from out of town, these organizers were just blown away by the interaction, the positive interaction between our police department and our youth. And that is directly attributable to the school resource, the SRO program. So it's not only what's happening within the walls of our schools, but throughout the community. And as you mentioned, I didn't really think about it, years later when you run into these people that you were engaged with from Waukesha North.
With a position like that, it can't be just anybody. You have to have the right temperament, the right personality to be able to do a job like that. And it's cultivating relationships, no more, no less. And the role of a police officer obviously is to enforce the law, but it's to work for your community. You're
Right.
working for those citizens. Those
Sure.
citizens are your boss, whether they're young or old, and you treat them with respect. It is pretty plain and simple. Also, sometimes very hard to do.
Sure.
You think about it when you're looking at it from an officer's perspective. We see. I say we, I'm retired now, but you see the worst in people. You generally see the people at their very worst when
Sure.
it's a tragic situation. And that might not be that's that snapshot or the picture in time of what that person was going through. But 99% of the time, when they're not in that specific situation, they might be very stand up. You just don't know. So, and that's something, the temperament that a police officer has to have is
Sure.
remain cool under stress, because
Yeah.
it can go 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds. And just like the situation that you described with the shooter at the high schools, it's that'll never happen here. I hope in this day and age now, that philosophy is not on the lips of anybody, because as we found out, anything can happen anywhere at any time.
Absolutely.
And it's the training that you go through that'll
Sure.
prepare you for anything that's unexpected.
Yeah.
You can't just go and you attend your in-service once a year and then you forget about it the following year. It's what you learn from that point in time and how you're replaying things in your mind as you're driving around in that patrol car. As you're walking around that school, okay, what am I going to do if?
Right.
So you're kind of always rehearsing scenarios in your mind so that you're fresh and you're able to react, at a moment's notice when something goes wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just simply cultivating relationships, and you touched on something that's actually pretty near and dear to my heart when you talked about the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
I said at that point in time, and I'll say it till my dying day, all lives matter. No citizen has, no individual has any greater or lesser, market value than
Sure.
the next kind of thing. So to put one life over another just isn't the right thing to do. And I think that's what's wrong a lot with the country nowadays. We're just too divided, and at some point you got to come together, because it certainly, in my opinion, it certainly isn't looking good if the divide keeps growing.
Right. Yeah. And, and again, pointing back to the SRO program, we had some instances at there was a Waukesha South basketball game against Oconomowoc, and the students section of Oconomowoc was asked to leave. And, you worry about something like that escalating a potential fight. But again, we had two SROs standing right there, and these young kids walked out. They made some signs. They made some not appropriate epitaphs. Some maybe even of a racial nature, but the whole thing was thwarted and diffused. And then I was sad to learn that Arrowhead a couple weeks ago, there were some racial slurs made at some black students sitting by themselves in a cafeteria, and some students were suspended. There was a hearing. And I remember one parent got up, and it was one of the black students that was, I guess you'd say, offended. And he said they moved all the way up here from Georgia for football because Arrowhead has that, And someone was asking about that. Well, gosh, what's with that? Like, Arrowhead's recruiting nationally. I don't have a problem with that. If you've got a great brand, if you've got a great athletic program, I don't care if you're a public school, you should be able to attract talent from anywhere, especially if they don't have those resources in the communities where they live. I take my hat off to Arrowhead for that. But you would figure if you're the leadership of that school, and yes, academics come first, but the sports, they're a big part of the brand. And And Arrowhead and many of the other Classic 8 schools are feeder programs for the Big Ten, for great Division I programs, for great Division II and Division III programs as well. Some of that leadership just say, like, this stuff does not stand here. Just like you said, all lives matter. We all treat each other with respect, especially when these young people are putting their line, they're in a way, they're, like football it's a blood sport. It's a collision sport. I won't compare it to being a police officer, but there's a certain amount of physical violence you endure.
There absolutely is.
But it's just like we should all be supporting each other.
Right.
And it's at that level, at the high school level, where there should be some serious learning lessons about how you treat each other with dignity. And again, I've seen time and time again in some isolated scenarios that my children tell me about, or that I've learned about from the SROs themselves, where they are a very valuable resource for not only diffusing violence or escalating or traumatic situations, but also being proactive about engaging and getting people to work through issues and finding common ground.
And that's something we didn't talk about, Don, but you're right. Anybody can be reactive, and you develop that rapport within the student body that they're not afraid to come to you and talk to you about different things. And that's the proactive part of this, is that, if something's in the mix and, you hadn't heard about it, a lot of times the students will come in and talk to you about it. And it's you might not contact every student,
Sure.
and more than likely you probably won't.
Right.
But any student, they got to feel comfortable coming in and talking to you.
Sure.
I had another incident while I was at Waukesha North of an adult male that was abusing young teens, males, while I was in there. And
Wow.
I went after him pretty hard, and he had threatened my family. The police community came together, and, the gentleman was arrested, and, nothing had happened, obviously. But to get these kids to open up, because, sexual assault isn't something that's easy to talk about.
Yeah.
But, just the impact that these SROs can make in the schools is unbelievable. And for there even to be talk about, disbanding that program, it's really a total injustice. And for districts that don't have it, I think they're missing out on valuable opportunities to,
Sure.
to try to, foster the relationships between the police and their community. Because you're the ambassador there, right? You're the ambassador. And, it's not in, you're not walking around in your uniform and everything. Generally, you're in soft clothes.
Sure.
I take that back. At least that's the way it was when I was in there. You wore your uniform at times, and at times you didn't. It depended on what was going on, or,
Right.
You had that flexibility.
Sure.
And I'm not sure that that's the way it is now, but, you blend in with the student body that way.
Sure.
So, you're not that person in
Right.
that uniform and, the duty belt,
Right.
and,
Yeah.
you're not that, body armor.
Right.
You're a person just like they are.
Sure. How many years were you assigned at Waukesha North as an SRO?
2 years.
2 years. Okay.
2 years. And at that time I think it was a 3-year rotation. I had retired out of there.
Okay.
So, and, kind of a mistake, I guess. The grass isn't always greener.
Sure.
I had a civilian job opportunity, and, it still breaks my heart to this day. I left a job I truly loved to a job that didn't work out. But,
Okay.
you don't look back. You
Sure.
keep looking forward. And
Sure.
I kind of carry that with me now. As you know, I'm also working in public safety at Carroll University.
That's terrific.
So kind of ambassador for the university that way. I deal
And I've
direct.
enjoyed your text during the games too. So
And I was going to say, I was listening to the game with Oconomowoc, and you had said that they're clearing the gym and everything. It's
unfortunate.
There's nothing wrong with it, supporting your team and the
Right.
enthusiasm you show, but there's certainly a proper way to do that.
There sure is, no doubt. And so, but I wanted, since we mentioned Waukesha North, I wanted to give a big shout out to the North Star girls bowling team that took first place in their conference meet this week, and they are headed to state on March 2nd. So congratulations to the team and to one bowler in particular, my niece, Sarah Orlowski, only a freshman. And the entire team's average GPA is 3.5. So another great credit to the coaching staff there at Waukesha North and to Waukesha North. And it's another great example that the sports can contribute to great academics too, keeping you focused, keeping you out of trouble, but really keeping you focused. So that's a great moment there. And then want to include some more high school sports. Waukesha South was victorious at McGuanago last night with a 73-66 victory. And the game that I broadcast last night, Kettle Moraine, the 8th-ranked team in the state, 6th in the area, in the top of the Classic 8, tied with Arrowhead. They were victorious over Waukesha West. Final score was, I believe, 68-44. Will Stuckey led all scores from the Lasers with 24 points. And note for Kettle Moraine is, they don't have Drew Wagner this year. I think he's sitting it out, recovering from shoulder surgery. He's committing to Northwestern University. Drew's dad, Lieutenant Tom Wagner, who was acting chief in between Russell Jack and now Daniel Thompson. But
and actually now Tom is a deputy chief.
Deputy chief, excuse me. Thanks for the clarification. Yeah.
And I should correct. I don't know if it's deputy chief or assistant chief.
Okay.
It has changed a few times.
It's still in the higher
during the time, but yes.
And Tom's pleased that Drew looks like he's committing to Northwestern just down the road there in Evanston, and I think that's a great fit for him and for that program to have a kid with his speed who can get in space. And some more local news, including the Carroll Minute, and more to talk about with Terry Theme, including his platform for re-election and what he's doing as part of his campaign. He's much bigger geography than the old 1st District there in Banting Park. So I'd like to hear more about the Fighting Saint Terry Theme. So much more to cover here on This Week in Waukesha. WAUK 101.1 FM. And take the show with you on the Civic Media app.
The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. The revolution will not be televised.
Yeah.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come.
It's This Week in Waukesha, and you're listening to Sam Cooke, Change Gonna Come. One of my favorites, Sam Cooke, and a great song. And it is Black History Month, and one of my challenges was, because we don't have a lot of apparent Black history in Waukesha, but I have my next guest next week is a young man, a cartoonist. He created a comic series called The Fair Fight. And his first volume won some awards, and he's also, I think they're going to animate his concept, which is exciting. His name's Tyree Pope III. He's a 2014 graduate of Waukesha South. He was referred to me by Dan Schreier, the associate principal and athletic director at Waukesha South. So really looking forward to having Tyree on. It'll be a pre-recorded show. And Tyree also has his own podcast. He covered the Sundance Film Festival recently. So, a young man doing a lot of things and living his own history. So really excited to learn more about that. And then continuing the conversation with the Fighting Saint, Terry Theme, 10th District Supervisor. He's got a campaign for re-election. And I know when you're running unopposed, you still got to get out there and you got to get the votes. You want to show, you want to discourage people from running against you maybe next time. But it's a great opportunity to engage with everybody. And, during our, when we were both in the city council during our tenures, getting out and hitting the bricks in our little district there, it was walkable or at the very, a short drive. But now Terry's got the town of Brookfield, wards 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Got the city of Pewaukee, wards 1, 2, 9, 10, and 11. And the city of Waukesha, wards 1, 2, 3, and 6. So how do you plan on covering all that area?
Well, you drive and you park and then you walk. And that's how I started out, my first term coming around. And it's really no different than an alderman, just a larger area and is still the boots on the ground and walking and knocking on doors.
Nice. Speaking of knocking on doors, Mayor Sean Riley's here. Would you mind letting him in, Terry? We do a rough and ready here. I think you guys know each other.
Maybe so.
Yeah. So this will be a lot of fun. All right. So thank you for doing that, Terry.
Absolutely.
Continuing to serve. So So the plan is to try to cover as many of those areas as possible before when's the election in April for you?
April 2nd,
April
I believe
2nd,
the date is.
Yep. So you'll be hitting the bricks, or at least you'll be more driving than walking.
Yes, it is. It is April 2nd. Yeah.
Sure.
And it's my philosophy hasn't changed from when I first ran for county supervisor. No surprise, but law enforcement, the safe communities. It's we talked about before about the prosecution, and everybody wants to create a new law to do this, that, or the other thing. Simply enforce the ones that you have and make these folks accountable. Releasing them and not doing anything or minimal punishment. If it's a fine, they don't pay their fines. Okay, you get your driver's license suspended, or
Sure.
I guess worst case scenario, you get a warrant issued for you. You sit out the time for the warrant, and then you're on your way again. With some of these driving offenses, and again, I'm not in the administration of any of this. I guess that way the mechanics of everything would be to the experts in law enforcement now, but I would have to think that there's a way with some of these driving violations. You tow their car. If they don't have accessibility to a car, that's going to stop some of the bad driving thing, and then hold the owners of the vehicle accountable. With the vehicle thefts, I guess that throws that out the window, but then you got to hold these people accountable that are committing these. And that's, you enforce what you have on the books. You don't have to create a bunch of new laws. Enforce and strongly enforce.
Sure. Now, because I'd heard, there's a whole slew of thefts, mostly in the city of Milwaukee, involving Hyundais and like types of Hondas. I guess they're easy to break into and steal. That hasn't happened so much here in Waukesha County, and just to your knowledge, right?
And I don't think it
Something
has.
like that.
I know we had a
Good.
couple incidents at Carroll and everything.
Okay.
But I don't really think it has. For the most part, I think Waukesha County is a very safe community. The city of Waukesha certainly is.
Sure.
And we aren't facing a lot of the issues now. One of the things that is happening is crime is filtering out from the east.
Yeah.
Just recently, within the last, I think 2 weeks, there was a vehicle theft or attempted vehicle theft from one of the car dealerships
Really?
in the
Right
city.
near our home, right near our neighborhood.
Right near our home,
Wow.
right? And as I understand it, these folks were from a different community,
Sure.
not east of here either.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, crime is from all over, and we just have to, everybody has to keep their eyes out
Be
for
vigilant.
everything.
Sure. Interesting. When you're going around, when you're when you're going door to door, what are you hearing? So what are the big issues you're hearing from some of your constituents?
Safety is the top of their mind.
Just like you're saying,
Yeah.
okay.
The safety is the top of everybody's mind. They want
Sure.
a safe community.
Yeah.
Probably a close second is roads. I don't know that the mayor knows anything about roads, but and that is, and that's the other thing. We talked about staffing, the state staffing for the district attorney's office. There's that surplus in Madison. How about some money for roads? I don't think that there's any city that doesn't have pothole complaints or, with escalating costs when you're rebuilding the roads. The communities need help. It doesn't do any good to sit on a surplus and it's good to let it grow. But when communities are asking for help, that's what they're there for, is to help their constituents. And somehow I think that's getting lost.
Yeah. Sure. Do you notice when you're in Brookfield and when you're in Pewaukee, is there much difference in terms of the mentality of the constituents, or is it pretty consistent in terms of what they value?
I think it's consistent all the way around. It doesn't matter. Our location is such that we're really blended communities when it comes right down to it. It's just what level of government is responsible for what.
Sure. So, before we get to the second hour, we have 1 minute. Who'd you like better as an executive, Sean Riley or Paul Farrow? Only kidding. You don't have to answer that. Sean's joining us next, so we figured we'd poke a little fun. So, but much more to talk about with the Fighting Saint, Terry Themey, as we approach the second hour. And joining Terry and myself is an old friend of ours, a Rotarian who you know as Mayor Sean Riley, talking about the blues, the blues concert, Winter Blues concert next Sunday. So, plus Lieutenant Dan Notling will also be coming in the second hour to promote the Melodies for Mary, very special benefit. And The sun is out here on this beautiful Saturday morning. This week in Waukesha, WAUK 101.1 FM and the Civic Media app.